Welcome to City Life. Today on the program we have the town crier, City Councillor Jamie Gough and our arts contributor Warren Feeney. But first on the program, Dan Coward from the New Zealand Fire Service. Welcome back to City Life.
Yeah, morning, thank you.
It's always good to have you here. Now, a catch up with how your injured firefighter is.
He's doing really well. He's actually hobbling now on crutches, so he's a lot more mobile than what he was the other week. So he's out of hospital, discharged, doing well, hobbling about, and probably a long journey of rehabilitation to go yet.
Okay, it's good to hear that he's up and about now. What about the investigation into the fire?
Yeah, so the investigation's still ongoing. It's a really complex one. The sheer size of the complex, some 2,000 square metres, 2 floors, structurally unsound. So they're doing an amazing job considering the circumstances, and I'd like to think that we'll have a report at some stage in the near future.
And of course, it's the Birmingham Drive fire that we're talking
Absolutely.
about. Now, what are the fire trends been for this week?
Well, we've had a busy week. It's busier than average, even though it's quieter than the week before. We attended some 115 calls during the week. We've seen 8 arsons again during this week,
Wow.
mostly on the southern side of Christchurch. So we're working really closely with police around some of those fires where they occurred, the trends, and then looking at what measures can we do in conjunction with the police to get on top of them.
Let's look at arsons. How many, on average, per week would you usually have?
Well, they seem to fluctuate, but we seem to be sort of sitting around that between 6 and 10 a week at the moment.
Wow.
So it is a concern for us, it's a concern for the police. So yeah, we're working really closely together, and we're looking at what other options we've got. So it might be things like getting together with the insurance companies and working with the police and sort of coming up with a strategy to identify the target areas. What do we need to do to try and catch these people, and then also involve the court process, ensuring that the people we do get for these crimes actually get a punishment that sort of really deters future people from getting into it. It's a problem for us, and it's one that we really want to get on top of.
What's going on? Are they empty buildings because of the earthquake or something?
It's a right mixture. Some people are using it as a method to get rid of their buildings, taking advantage of empty buildings, often to hide crime, but also some people that are just being really silly, just walking along and being opportunists and seizing the opportunity to set fire to couches, to people's letterboxes, hedges, fences, just in a time where everybody's hurting and trying to rebuild and get on with life. Along comes somebody that decides to target their property and set fire to it.
It's pretty foolish, isn't it?
It is.
Last week we were talking about home escape plans.
Yes.
That was well, we were both going to go away and look up fire.org.nz
Yes.
and do a fire escape plan, but I did mine,
Yes.
I must say.
And you printed it off?
No, I couldn't print it off. For some reason it wouldn't print off.
Well, you need to print it off, you need to have it on your fridge, and it needs to be practiced.
Okay.
And, like, one of the things that we've done is we've developed a brochure, and we're working really closely with the Department of Building and Housing on the temporary villages. So we're making sure that all new temporary homes that are being built will be supplied with 10-year smoke alarms, and we're supplying that as a fire service.
Wow.
We've seen it as something that we can contribute to the safety of people in those homes. And so we're going to supply the smoke alarms. We've developed a brochure and an information pack for people moving into it.
Wow.
And it talks about all the safety factors they need to be taking into consideration. And we've even drawn up the maps of each of the houses, the different types, and where the smoke alarm needs to be, and some information pertaining to each one of those.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's a really good initiative.
Yeah, it's something we're really pleased. It's our way of contributing to that redevelopment and contributing to the people that are going to be hit the hardest in terms of having to move into temporary housing.
Okay. Now, I know that you've got your brochure with you with some home escape plan. Let's have a look at that, because we can hold it up.
Yeah, look, this is some of the things that we're really excited about. And it sort of talks about the different types of temporary housing, where the smoke alarms need to be. And no doubt your one looked a little bit like this when you went online.
Do you know what? It pretty much did. All houses are square, or rectangle, so yeah.
Yeah.
I felt really creative, and I don't know, maybe just couldn't print it out.
Look, it's a really fun way to get your whole family involved, your children. It's something that's really heartbreaking when we attend fires where children have lost their lives, and other people, where the simple process of having a smoke alarm to warn them, and the simple process of being able to get out in the event of a fire. We know fires develop really quickly, they're hot, you can't see, and a lot of children die by hiding in their bedrooms because they don't know where to go. And quite often we'll find people near a doorway or near a window because they haven't quite made it. It's been a process that they haven't practiced, and yet in our normal work environment we're required to do trial evacuations, and we practice regularly getting out of our buildings in a safe, orderly manner, something that you can do at home.
Yeah, and why wouldn't you do it at home?
Absolutely,
as well?
yeah.
Especially in the night when it's, well, so dark, and who knows what will
Absolutely.
happen in a fire. Now, that home escape plan, so anyone can go online and
Anyone
do that?
can go online.
Yeah.
And if you're really stuck and you really want some advice, we're always there. We're always open to taking phone calls. We have that 0800 fire safety number that people can call, and people can call and get a home fire safety check. We can check your smoke alarms, and we can help you with your home escape plan to make sure that you and your family have every opportunity of getting out in the event of a fire.
Great. Dan, thank you for coming on the program. Always good to see you.
Thank you.
My next guest is here to talk about recovery of lifelines. But before we get into that, Sonia, I was looking up your University of Canterbury website and found your research brief. Can you explain this? It looked really interesting.
Yes, my background is risk assessment, risk related to natural hazard and main-induced hazards. So natural hazard can be earthquake, volcano, flooding, and natural hazard, and man-related hazard are the ones caused by human activity. We try to reduce this hazard in different way. By mitigating the vulnerability, by providing a solution for respond quickly, and all of this is a really multidisciplinary topic, so must be done in a collaborative way among different disciplines. So really my work is try to provide different strategies to deal with risk and to reduce the risk.
Okay, recovery of lifelines.
Yes.
What is it?
First of all, it's good to define what lifelines are. Lifelines are utility networks, first of all, so water, wastewater, power, and our transportation system like roads, ports, and railway. And plus, we can consider lifeline as well the health systems. So recovery of lifelines means try to bring all of them back 100% of functionality in a quicker time, in the best way possible. So that's all about recovery of lifelines.
So you would have been working with that quite closely with September and February's quake.
Yes, definitely closing. My role now is a sort of a liaison person, so I'm every day in contact with them to understand what their needs are in terms of knowledge, what is available in the scientific world in terms of maybe engineering solution, but as well as understanding the risk. So they are now in the phase they have to plan for the rebuilding and for the repairing activities. So this must be done at the best way possible. That's why they need to know what the risks are, what the vulnerability are, and that's my role.
What's the importance of assessing risk?
Assessing risk? Yes, we really need to understand. So we had 2 earthquakes, and we cannot think that everything gets off, unfortunately. So we have to think about if something else happens, what will be the performance of this lifeline again, and what will be the impact on the community. We have seen that the impact has been big so far, so we need really to reduce this impact and to improve the performance as possible.
Yeah. What are the benefits of implementing mitigation measures?
Will be for sure reducing this impact. I can provide some example, like not sure if I can say the names, but the providers of power here in New Zealand did brilliant work in seismic strengthening their components, the equipment of their networks, and they did work brilliantly for both the earthquake. So their seismic retrofitting helped them to save lots of money for them and to reduce brilliantly the impact on the community.
How has previous research helped reduce the impact of quakes on lifelines?
Yeah, I have to say New Zealand is really one of the top country in the world on this research. New Zealand had, since a few years, a National Lifeline Engineering Committee. In Canterbury here there is a Regional Council for Lifeline Engineering, and they did in 1999 very interesting studies that was called Risk and Realities, and this really helped to plan together all the lifelines, how to react in case of an emergency, in case of a natural event. Because I haven't said that before, but lifelines are really complex system because are made of components, and everything is interrelated, interconnected, and each lifeline has interdependencies with other ones. So like if we have roads that are destroyed, we cannot go and repair power equipment or so everything, or we cannot maybe access the water network. So, and this all the previous research has helped them to talk together, to plan together, and I think the results are clear because we had an impact, but could have been worse.
What's it like for you personally to have all this research and all this study you've been putting into for years actually using it now?
Oh, it's really great, actually. Yeah. I can really see now the utility of my work, of all my previous studies, and they're really exciting here in New Zealand because it's easy to talk to the person who really needs research. So I'm working under this natural hazard research platform that is really has been created to provide a link between research and end user, and this is so exciting because in maybe in other countries this connection is not so close. So
that's good. It's good that you're able to put what you've learned into practice.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah,
Sonia, really good to have you on the program.
My pleasure.
And we'll be back after this break. Welcome back to City Life and welcome to the program, Nick from Rolleston Vets. Now, I've had some good feedback from your segment last week on poisons, especially about chocolate being a poison for pet animals.
Oh, well, good.
Yeah,
that's
so
good.
that's really good feedback, so thanks.
That's great. No, that's good, making people aware of what it's about, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Now, what's the focus this week?
Vaccinations.
Okay, so how important is it?
Very important. It's still one of the major important health benefits in modern medicine, whether it's animal or human, I guess. So, on top of that, it enables good contact as well between the patient, the pet, and the veterinarian. So, it's a good impetus to stimulate a full examination of the animal and make sure we're preserving good health. Of course, annual checkup is very important, but sometimes some people need a little more stimulus to get their pet into the vet, and so when it comes booster time, that's a good stimulus to get the pet into the veterinarian so that he or she can examine the animal as well and make sure that things are picked up.
Okay, let's look at the pet animals. Say, for example, dogs. What diseases can they be protected a bit against? Okay,
so we divide vaccinations into what we call core components. That includes major diseases that we still need to protect against across the board. That includes diseases such as distemper, which not many people have heard about these days because we haven't had any clinical cases of the disease for some years now. However, in Finland, just a few years ago, they had about 5 years where they inadvertently were using a defective vaccine. And over that 5-year period, the degree of immunity in the whole population of dogs in Finland, a concept that we call herd immunity, dropped to a level that we had a very susceptible population, and they actually did get hit with a distemper outbreak which killed quite a significant proportion of their pet dogs.
Wow.
So that probably illustrates how important it is to maintain this immunity. So distemper is one of the core diseases. Parvovirus is another one. That's a disease that causes very bad diarrhoea and vomiting in puppies, and it has a very high mortality rate, and vaccination is just fantastic at preventing the disease altogether. So hepatitis is another core component of the vaccine armoury against diseases of dogs. And that does creep up from time to time, I must say. And then we have the non-core components, such as kennel cough. There's a number of causes of kennel cough. Parainfluenza is a common viral cause. Bordetella is a bacterial cause that is similar organism to the bug that causes whooping cough actually in children. So Bordetella pertussis is the human bacteria. Bordetella bronchoseptica is the one that affects dogs, and it results in a cough, very contagious. It's not what we call a core component of vaccine, but regionally is important, and Christchurch is a region where we get a lot of kennel cough, and so it's important that we do maintain immunity for that condition. Particularly kennels in particular are just a great environment for kennel cough. It's so contagious that it can cause huge outbreaks in kennel situations. And so most kennels, I think, would insist that immunity is up to date for that condition.
Okay. All right, so that's dogs.
Mm-hmm. And
now
cats. So the core components in cats are the cat flu bugs. So we've got herpes virus and we've also got Kalichi virus. Both of those are respiratory pathogens or diseases that cause respiratory disease, snuffles we sometimes call it. Panleukopenia or feline enteritis is another core component. That's the feline or cat equivalent to parvovirus, which I mentioned in the dog section. So it causes similar symptoms. Apart from it has a propensity to affect the bone marrow, so it can really have a major impact on the bone marrow of the kitten. And again, immunity is very, very good, well stimulated by vaccine, and can prevent these problems occurring just through the simple process of vaccination. Then we have other common non-core components. Chlamydia, we used to call it, it's now called Chlamydophila, is an infectious disease of cats that causes usually pussy conjunctivitis. It's regional again, kind of like the kennel cough situation in dogs, but it's even more regional. So within Christchurch, for instance, we have some areas of the city that we just don't see the disease, and then we have other areas where it's very, very common. And so, for instance, in my practice, we sit in a pocket of chlamydia. We routinely use that as part of our vaccine. That may not be seen as important in other parts of the city. On top of those common vaccinations, we have less common vaccinations that are sometimes used as well. Leptospirosis is one that we use in dogs sometimes, and that's dogs that are going to high-risk parts of the country, such as in the North Island. We hardly see leptospirosis in the South Island, so it's not used, but there are specific situations in dogs that are travelling for showing, or maybe they're moving to a location in the North Island where we'll stimulate immunity with leptospirosis. Then we have the feline AIDS vaccine, which is targeted to high-risk situations. And there's another condition in cats called feline leukemia virus, which can result in lymph cancers or immune cell cancers and bone marrow diseases. Again, we sort of target that to high-risk situations usually. There's another vaccine that's available, which is seen to help prevent dental disease in high-risk dogs. So we talked about teeth a few weeks ago, and I mentioned a few breeds, and some of those breeds we can go a long way to maybe prevent gum disease or periodontal disease in high-risk situations by using some of those vaccines as well. So there's a great armoury. Some of them should be applied to pretty much all pet animals, and some of them shouldn't, and maybe need to be used in certain situations. And that's where the importance of targeting or individual preventative health plans come in, and that's important when we're talking about individual dialogue with your veterinarian specific to your pet and your specific situation.
Okay, Nick, finally, why is it so important to complete a puppy and a kitten vaccination? Okay,
that's a very good question. Sometimes people might wonder why puppies and kittens, when they're going through what we call their paediatric or their juvenile course of vaccination, why so many shots are required, 2 or 3 shots often. Now, the reason for this is that as a neonate or a newborn mammal, just like us all, we receive a lot of protection or antibodies from our mother's first milk. Now, they're great. Those antibodies are great and preserve health as a baby. However, they do interfere with vaccine take, and so if we vaccinate an animal when there's a high level of antibodies that have been absorbed through the mother's first milk, the colostrum, those colostral antibodies interfere with the vaccine working and stimulating immunity. Now, without running very expensive tests, it's difficult for me as a vet to know at what stage each individual that colostral antibody wanes to a level where I can successfully vaccinate. And so we take an approach where we take the highest risk situation where we think some animals will be not protected and vaccine will work. So we'll start our vaccination course at that point, and we'll repeat vaccination at a number of times through the early period. So we're covering our bases, keeping the animal protected to a time when we're pretty sure that the vaccine will work. There's another little issue as well. Some components of vaccine are killed components. They always require two exposures or 2 injections to stimulate good immunity. Some components are modified live components. Usually one is enough, assuming that the maternal level of antibody is low enough for it to work. So that maybe hopefully clarifies that situation a little bit.
Great, thank you, Nick. Thanks for coming on the program. Now, after the break, the City of Christchurch Town Crier. Welcome back to City Life. A couple of days ago we had the Christchurch Wizard on the program, and today we have another iconic figure from Christchurch, the Town Crier. So good to have you on the program.
Lovely to be here.
Now tell me, what have you been up to since, February?
Well, not very much. Perforce, a town crier needs a town. And without a town to cry, a town crier becomes pretty much redundant. So I've been at home. We have a little cottage. We actually we've been inside the red zone for much of the time.
Gosh.
In Barbados Street. So I've been at home and I've been cooking and doing housework and writing a novel and generally reading and waiting for the time to pass.
Yeah. So tell me about, where were you at the time of the quake?
I was right in front of the cathedral.
Oh gosh.
When it all came down. So I was looking straight at it. Not that I saw very much, there was just this great big cloud of dust. So I didn't actually see anything. But it was something that'll stay with me for forever, I think.
What was your instant reaction when it happened?
That's not easy to say. I didn't. I had this really quite quiet thought, thinking, "Oh, that's the cathedral gone." But my first thought immediately was for my wife, who worked just around the corner in Hereford Street, and I immediately started walking around there to find her. I was interested to note the reaction. You know, when you see disaster movies, particularly on American disaster movies, there's lots of screaming and shrieking and running and shouting, but there was none of that. Nobody seemed to be in a panic. As I walked across the square, everybody was looking a bit dazed and very dust-covered. And I got round to the intersection of Colombo and Hereford Street, and lots of people, of course, streaming out of buildings. But there was no shouting, no screaming, no hysterics. One woman was crying, but everybody else was just, I think, very dazed and absolutely stunned by the enormity of it.
Was it a relief for you to eventually find your wife?
I don't really know what I felt. I wasn't really feeling anything at the time. I knew I had to find her and we had to get home, and I was just putting feelings to one side and we got home.
What about you as a town crier? I mean, you would have been wearing what you're wearing now.
Exactly what I'm wearing now.
Do people sort of stop and sort of look to you for some sort of comfort, or,
No.
You were just another person?
Just another person. No, I had my wife, we were out in the street, and I suppose quite clearly I was guiding her home, or she was guiding me home.
Yeah.
And I saw a number of people I knew, I saw the bishop walking along with a friend, and they were obviously pretty dazed and stunned, but nobody was looking to them for support either. Everybody was just looking to their immediate somebody they were with, I think.
So you were no longer that character of the town crier. You were actually, well,
Just me.
Just you.
Yep.
What was it like, not having that character to sort of play behind, I suppose, when it's real life?
Well, this is real life. This is what I am. And I was just a town crier trying to get home.
Gosh. What's it like seeing your city as it is?
Well, I haven't been back since. And, of course, I've seen images in the newspaper, not on television, I might add, because the television fell over and landed onto something like that, and we haven't had a television since. So haven't seen anything on television I don't really want to see. I have driven around the outside and been able to look in at what's there, and quite frankly, what I have seen is just so staggering. I'm not sure that I want to walk around and look at it. I know there's been a lot of calls to go into the city and allow people to look at the debris, but do you really want to see piles of rubbish?
So what of the future for you?
Well, the short answer is I really don't know. The town crier's stock in trade, of course, is tourists. And my job basically was talking to tourists in Cathedral Square, at the greatest concentration of tourists available, which is the square. And as part of a milieu that, of course, included all the heritage buildings like the cathedral, the arts centre, the provincial council chambers. So the persona of the town crier fits in well with all this. But without that, without those buildings, that heritage environment, and without the tourists, then I really don't know. We're looking to reopen the City Mall in time for the Cup Week, which is October, and I think there are high hopes for some sort of return to public life then. We can but play this by ear.
Okay, and finally, do you have an idea for a motto for the city?
A motto for the city, I do. Now, the old motto, of course, on the coat of arms is something like Fide Condita Beata Fructu Spem Fortis, which is a long, long Latin tag which nobody knows, and even less, and only odd people like the town crier are likely to remember. I suggest that we change the city's motto, retaining, of course, Latin, it has to be Latin, of course, it has a ring to it, to just one word, resurgamus, which means we shall rise again.
That's very good. So good to have you on the programme.
That's lovely to be here.
Really good to see you. After the break, we catch up with City Councillor Jamie Gough. Welcome back. CC Magazine is out today, and one of our contributors is City Councillor Jamie Gough. Welcome to the programme.
Thank you.
Now, we actually, yesterday on City Life, we had your uncle, Anthony Gough, on the programme, and do you work closely with him?
Yeah, I've worked very closely with Anthony over the years and still do. We've got a great relationship. He's a lovely guy, and I've got all the time in the world for him. But I've worked for Hereford Holdings for about 5 years as the asset and marketing manager prior to council.
He's so passionate about the city, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. We're very similar in a lot of ways with that. He wears brighter suits than me, but we share the same passion for Christchurch.
No, it was good to have him on the programme and also bring in the photos of what is going on in the city, just to show us, you know, people who, of course, haven't been able to go into the red zone. So it was really good to have him here.
Oh, it's an unreal sight in there, isn't it?
Yeah. Now, tell me, what have you written about in the magazine today?
Well, I've just recently got back from San Francisco, so 5 city councillors and 6 business leaders from Christchurch went over to accept an invitation from the Mayor, Ed Lee, in San Francisco to learn really what they did about their earthquake recovery in 1989. And we also visited, and I didn't actually think that it would be as informative as what it was. I knew the epicentre was in Santa Cruz. What I did know is that Santa Cruz had about 60,000 people, and I thought, well, this is just a different scale, but it'd be interesting to meet with their Chamber of Commerce, see what they did. But I think the real lessons, or the things that I took the most out of, were really from Santa Cruz. They didn't have the resources of San Francisco, or Christchurch for that matter. They didn't have the size, so they really, really had to innovate. It took them 2 years to put a plan in place. We've got less than 1 year. But it took them about a year to really refine down what they needed to do and what worked and what didn't work. So I got a heck of a lot out of that, and I really like to implement some of that stuff back in Christchurch.
What were some of the things you wanted to go over there to learn, and did you find out everything you wanted to learn over there?
Yeah, I think that I wanted to learn what they got right and what they got wrong, what they might have done differently, some of the innovative things that they did, the psychology of it, how long it took people to go back into buildings, and what they really changed and what opportunities they seized from the horrible situation that they were in.
So what kind of things have you brought back with you? What kind of ideas?
I think a lot of it was common sense, and as they say, it's not that common sometimes. But, the engagement side of it, I was absolutely committed and thought before I left, of course we've got to be bottom up, we've got to involve the community in this. This is probably one of the most essential things we could do. And going over there, I think the main message out of everything that I got back, and there were a heap of them, I've got screeds of paper on all of this, and it was just superb, but I came back very inspired. But it was that engagement just needs to be taken to a whole new level. And I guess that, when you're only limited to about 300 or so words in the CC magazine, there were so many things I wanted to talk about, but I wanted to take that one in particular, and they implemented a thing in Santa Cruz called their Gang of 36, which basically their council appointed half of the 36 and the business community appointed the other half of the 36, because they believed, and quite rightly so, this rebuild, outside of insurance money, outside of local government, outside of central government, 70% of that, and it was the same for them and it's exactly the same for us, is going to come from the people, the private sector, local businesses or even international businesses that want to invest there. And if they don't have ownership or belief in what the rebuild is going to be like, then you've got no rebuild. You can do top down all you like, but if it's not bottom up and you don't have the buy-in, you don't have a future.
Okay. How are you going to get your ideas across? How do you think you can get them across this?
Well, I think I've got a pretty good team of backers with the 4 city councillors that came over with me, and we all came back hugely inspired by that. And we all knew that we wanted to involve the community, and we were right behind the Sharon idea. But I think what we all came back with is that that's just got to be the start. It's all well and good to get some great ideas from the community and everything like that. Implementing them is even more important, but also wider. You've got to look at, because a business isn't going to invest or put money in if they don't have the community backing that's going to potentially take out a lease or start a business in their development or whatever. And if you don't have that sort of confidence and they don't have that sort of ownership, then you might as well not do anything else. So it's just absolutely imperative that when we share this with council, in the next couple of days we'll be going through a lot of this and share it with as many people as we can, that we can get this level of engagement and just lift it higher and higher. It's never been more... Look, engagement's always important, and that's what I love about local government, because I want to represent the people that put me there, and now it is just the most important time to do that, more than ever. There's got to be that ownership in it, and it's a fantastic opportunity. But I've always seen councillors not a be-all and end-all of everything. They're a facilitator. And I think that's what Santa Cruz did really well. There's people out there that do it better than the people in council. Horrible thing to say, oh, goodness gracious forbid, someone may be smarter than someone in council, and I think that's true. It really is. There's people that do this on a day-to-day basis. They specialise in it. They know their business inside out. And I see council as being a tool to give them great building blocks to succeed, because when they're succeeding, the whole city is succeeding. If the businesses and the people are happy about it, their property values are going up, their business is doing well, they're employing people, there's flow-on effects that benefit the council and the city just as much as them. So I think the council needs to be putting them in a position to succeed and really getting their ideas and going, well, what would work for you? How can we help you to succeed?
Finally, the 5 of you who went over, how are you going to make sure, the 5 of you together, that you do get your ideas across? Are you going to meet regularly? And
we've had a debrief, and we've also done that with the business leaders that went over. Yeah. But we'll also share this with council and make sure that we can get our messages across very clearly. Actually, that Gang of 36, they did this quite well in the sense that everything that was happening in the rebuild in Santa Cruz, it went through them, and they looked at that first, and they made a recommendation to the council, to the Recovery Authority, in the form of resolutions. So I think, to take, and I know that's a wee bit down the line, but that's something that I'd love to see us doing, and I think it's imperative that we do. But I think in the early stages as well, we need to go to council, make it very simple, and say, look, this is where we need to go, this is what we need to implement, and this is how we're going to get the buy-in, and it's going to be really, really good if we do this, and it's going to, conversely, it's going to be really bad if we don't do it.
Yeah, okay.
So I think it's just, it's a win-win. You get everyone, it's a no-brainer, and there were so many things like this. They doubled the size of the footpaths on the sunny side of the road in town, and halved it on the shady sides.
Oh.
It's simple things, but sometimes it takes a long time for them to learn those. So hopefully we've jumped a few steps and we can be ahead of the game for the better.
Yeah. Jamie, good to have you in the program. We'll catch up with you again soon.
Thanks, Kaneda.
Hot off the press today is the Mainland Press, and standing in for editor Chris Tobin is acting editor Chris McCann. Good to have you on the program.
Hello, Kaneda.
Good
nice to be here. Thank you.
So let's look at the front page of the Mainland Press. What's in it today?
Well, today, this front page story is an investigation into drinking spots in Christchurch. How many is too many? No problem with the amount of bars, just a discussion on the density.
Okay.
So
and of course you've got Anthony Gough there, and he was on the program actually yesterday, and he's such a character, isn't he?
Yes, he's got some comments to make on what he thinks about the bar density in the area. He of course, is a considerable investor in the terrace, formerly known as the Strip in Christchurch.
Yep, and also a lot of the buildings also in the central city, isn't he?
Yes, that's right.
All right, what are those other top three stories you've got?
Okay, well, we have a story about residents of Templeton, rural residents of Templeton, have received information that there will be some investigations of their land with the possibility of putting a road through it. These people knew nothing about it, and they're rather upset that they've been left in limbo with a rumour of a road, and they haven't heard back, and they're just a bit concerned, and they want some more information, because when you have a rumour of a road going through your property, you're pretty much
How did you find
quite
out about
concerned
that, Chris?
about it.
Word on the street?
Yes, literally word on the street.
Really?
And so I went and had a chat to some of the neighbours.
Gosh, and that's hard. I mean, that's a great way to get a story, isn't it?
Yes,
Just
that's right.
chatting to the, and of course we've got the Mayor, Bob Parker, there with his column.
Yes, Mayor Bob Parker every week ask every week about what he thinks of different topics, and this week he's talking about rebuilding, what sort of rebuilding there should be done, what sort of density of buildings. Yeah.
Okay. What else have we got on the paper? Page 3.
Right, well, the Sumner Museum people have lost their building, and they're looking for a place to put their artefacts.
Really?
And so they are storing them at the moment in a shipping container at a secret location.
Oh, really? Yes, of course.
Yes. So they're looking for a home.
They are looking for a home.
Yeah.
Are they looking for a home specifically in Sumner or outside?
Oh, they definitely would like one in Sumner.
Okay,
yes.
cool.
Yeah.
What else is in the paper?
Okay. Well, we interviewed Mr. Gough last week, Phil Gough, leader of the opposition, and he had some comments to say on the job skills shortage in Christchurch.
Oh, yes.
He's got some concerns about that. A lot of people do. So he's added his thoughts to that. We've reported on what he said about that.
Yep.
We have a story about Godley House. Godley House is being demolished, which is really sad, an old Diamond Harbour institution. And our story is about what residents would like to see to replace it.
Okay.
What they're saying is they would like to see pretty much something similar to what's already there. They hope the City Council, who own the building, will replace it with something similar.
Okay.
On page 10, look here, what have we got here? A milestone for city life. We've done a story on your program.
Let's
Kaneta,
have a look. I haven't actually seen
and,
this, so...
it is quite an achievement since the program started, you've already got 200 interviews under your belt.
I know,
and,
can you believe it?
that is pretty impressive. So there's a story there about this program and what you've achieved.
Thanks, you guys.
Yeah.
What else have we got? We've got about a minute left. What are the top stories?
Got the people of Sydenham are rather concerned. Sydenham is suffered quite badly in the earthquake, and that stretch of Colombo Street now in Sydenham is really quite vacant. There's a lot of buildings being knocked down. So the residents and the business owners in the area are rather disappointed that Post Shop, New Zealand Post, has decided not to reopen their shop, although the building is actually habitable. So they're asking New Zealand Post to reconsider that. They think it's rather sad that it's a matter of cart before the horse.
Okay.
The New Zealand Post is saying we want the suburb to be up and running before we put our post shop back, and the residents are saying, well, we would like you to be here to help us get up and running. So that's about what that's about.
Okay, well, there's loads more. We haven't even got halfway through the paper. There's loads more in there, but we don't have time to go through it. Where can we pick up our Mainland Press?
Well, we can pick them up at service stations and service centres and libraries and cafes in the central city and in the suburbs, as well as in Selwyn and the Waimaka area.
That's good. Chris, thank you so much for coming on the programme and filling in the shoes of Chris Tobin. It's good to have you here.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
After the break, we catch up with our arts contributor, Warren Feeney. Welcome back, and finally on the programme, our arts contributor, Warren Feeney. How are you going?
Hi, good, Kaneda.
How are arts in Christchurch this week? What's happening?
Well, the major show that's opened this week is Nth Degree, which is the Masters exhibition that's opened at SOFA, and it's running till the end of next week, and there's a catalogue to accompany the show as well.
Who's involved with this showing?
Well, essentially, it's an annual event that the school will run, and it's obviously Masters graduates, so 6 years of study at the School of Fine Arts, and it's not the moment when they kind of showcase their work, but it's an important exhibition in terms of, I guess, representing the school, and also the notion these artists are obviously about to head off into the world of professional art.
As you say, this is a group exhibition. What does it tell us about the state of arts in Christchurch at the moment?
I think it's an interesting exhibition in the sense that the work is inevitably of a really high quality. I mean, it's a great looking show. And what does it tell us about Canterbury? It tells us that Canterbury is producing some really interesting artists, and there's some great work coming out of there. I mean, there are two people in the show, when we have a look at them, who I think are, and I guess this comes down to personal choice, but I think they're particularly strong. And I walked in and thought, yeah, I want both of those works.
Is that right?
Yeah, no, there's some great pieces in it.
Now, you wanted another piece of artwork, and another one we're going to talk about later, and I'll see if you've bought that as well.
Okay.
Now, is there anything that unites these artists in their work?
Well, there is an overriding theme to it. It's Nth Degree, so the notion is it's about artists focused on meticulousness, I guess, processes and making, and described also in the catalogue as being kind of compulsive in their interests. And it's an interesting idea because I think that is part of it. But one of the ways in which the show works really well is when artists kind of have all that, but it's not that evident. That is that there's I wouldn't call it a reckless disregard for all those things, because it isn't. But it's kind of taken as a given, and you can see the artists are actually, fully in control of their methods and processes. So, I mean, maybe should we have a look? Charling de Vries, the first artist, there's a painting he has in the show called "You Sure Are Ugly, But You Sure Can Dance," and it's a great work because I see it as a painting about painting out painting. You can see that there are figures in it, and they're kind of cartoon figures and forms and shapes, and it's like when you look at it that the artist is actually kind of taken to them and is removing them at the same time. So in a way, it's a painting that to me sort of looks like he's eradicating, removing, blocking out and changing and obliterating, and yet the painting has this, it's a beautifully coloured painting, and it's got a great sense of kind of optimism and positiveness. It's a positive image. So there's a real sense of joy and celebration about the work as well, and I think just that paradox between kind of erasure, removal, and yet the thing just kicks, it's a great work. So that's a particular favourite, and again, somebody that can paint brilliantly and is, an absolute command of what he's doing. Okay,
and the next one that we've got?
The next one is, I think, Alison Stanifold, Animal, Mineral, Flora, and that's a really interesting work too, because I've followed some of her work over the last 2 or 3 years. She's been cutting mostly out of magazines and publications, generally very small photographs, and they could be animals, flowers, specimens, figures. And it's like she's sort of cutting them and then putting them in these glass slides so that they're all like specimens, and she'll group them, like lots of different species of flowers and things. And they've generally been contained in cabinets. And what's really nice, I think, about the work now is that it's floating kind of in the middle of the room, so it's hanging with kind of row upon row of all these little glass slides. And there's a sense that it's kind of been suspended in time and place. So whereas before there was sort of a storyline going on and very strongly narrative, I think this is good because it's sort of pulled all that away. So it's no longer about a particular place or environment. It's sort of floating somewhere that could be anywhere. So it's a little bit more magical, I think, than the works were previously.
Okay. Third piece, Jane Bauman.
Jane Bauman. Now this work is assembled from parts of a piano that have been sort of reworked and rebuilt. They're contained in a kind of a frame. And again, it's, I think, an interesting and a mature work in the sense that it's sort of looking at something, and because of the way in which it's contained, you're very conscious of the fact you're looking at something that's been constructed like a work of art. And I think that whole notion, there's a sort of an elegant art proverb aspect to it, in that this is recycled materials, but they've been made to look kind of brand new and reinvented again. So it's in a way, I think it's sort of like the artist talking about the making of an artwork too.
Okay. Number 4, Bianca.
Bianca van Leuven, which is a series of pinhole photographs, manifold locus. Now these works, I think, are interesting in the way in which arguably you can connect them very closely with painting in Canterbury, and going back to painting of Canterbury landscapes, say from the 1930s, people like Rita Angus, the painting of Cass. I mean, that's a sort of a standard tradition, or it's an image of Canterbury that people identify with very strongly, with the region and also with the school. The interesting thing about these works is that they capture some of that landscape, but they're actually really very, very unsettling. It's sort of like if you could imagine Rita Angus as the Blair Witch. She has really alienated, you feel very distant and very uncomfortable and very alienated from the subject. And they're pinhole camera images, so the pinhole camera, which is a piece of film, a photographic film, and then a hole in the end of it, and just taken over a lapse of time. So it's a very fundamental and very basic way of photographing, and she's really perfected it to an art. I mean, I think, again, it's probably a highlight of the show as well.
Is it one of the pieces you're going to be picking up?
That's pretty much one of the ones I really like a lot.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's a lovely work.
Nicola Burke.
Now, these are kind of biomorphic shapes on a series of works on paper. It's kind of like a single installation. Reminded me a wee bit of Mark Bronius, who was a graduate from the school about sort of 18, 20 years ago, where there's kind of shapes and forms which could be sort of looking through a microscope, but they've been reinvented as kind of, I guess, as sort of colourful, surreal sort of images. They're also a bit like working drawings for sculpture she's been working on as well, and rather than the sculpture, she's worked with these drawings in the show. Okay.
This is some... Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay.
This is someone you've spoken about before, Katie Thomas.
Yeah, Katie Thomas. Yeah, this is a work, again, from the same series, because she had a solo show a few weeks ago, and it's called A Place for Birds. And we talked about that and talked about the notion of her using this kind of loop form. She's very interested in sort of knitting as a motif. And this work, again, layer upon layer. And I like the title and the way that the whole work does have a really strong rhythm and again, I think a really joyful and lovely rhythm and pace to it.
Julie Ross,
and this is an artist we shared an exhibition as well at the SOFA last week. This is a body of work. The photographs of the artist that she's worked and manipulated, and it's called Thoughtful 1 to 4. And there's there's a pun there in terms of it's thoughtful, as in her head is physically full of thoughts which are kind of overflowing, and the portraits are looking in towards one another. So it's an interesting question there about sort of the dilemma of, introspection and looking, maybe self-reflection too much.
Okay, Nathan. You've spoken about him before.
Nathan Poio, I think. Yeah. This is called Untitled, and he's been making work for the last 2 or 3 years, very much interested in early filmmaking. This work's kind of based around the notion of Buster Keaton and silent movies, and sort of, I guess it's been isolated from that period, so it's the sense of it being a kind of an identity and a popular identity.
And finally, Paul McLaughlin.
Yeah, Paul McLaughlin, I wasn't familiar with his work, but this I thought was a really striking piece and a welcome sort of additional surprise to the show. It's called Passage, and it's photographs taken looking down on a group of people, and there are 4 of them. And I mentioned about the show being kind of, meticulous and careful, and this is a lovely work because it has all those things going for it, but it's actually, again, it appears to have been done just so effortlessly and so confidently. It's a really striking, beautiful work.
So it's nth degree, 2011 master's students, Sofa Gallery, Clyde Road School of Fine Arts, 27th of May, until the 10th of June, Monday to Friday, 11 till 4:30pm. And now finally, art opportunity at the George Hotel.
Yeah.
Now I know that there was a piece there you had your eye on. It was a big piece of canvas, wasn't it?
Yes, there was, but I didn't.
Yeah.
So,
you didn't. You didn't have a room big enough.
No,
Yeah.
no. But it was a great show, and it was a real success. I mean, fundamental to that exhibition was the notion of exhibiting work by artists in Christchurch who currently don't have anywhere to display. And over the 3 days, it went really well. They had hundreds of people through the George. The opening night, I think they sold just over $9,000 of the work from the show. And the following 2 days, it went brilliantly. I mean, I'd not worked with Art Canterbury before, but I was just really impressed by the fact they were there 8 o'clock Saturday morning. They were there till 8 o'clock in the evening, and their support for the premise of the show and their effort was just, I think, really remarkable.
Okay, Warren, thank you so much for coming on the program. Always good to see you.
Thank you.
We'll see you back here this time next week.
Thanks.
And that is City Life for today. You can get in touch with us. You can email me, canetta@ctv.co.nz. You can give me a call, 3777 033, or of course you can write to me, PO Box 1100 Christchurch. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow.